got a pretty quick tip here. As I was carving this, realized kind of a little thing to think about or be aware of in carving, and that is the general principle of you want to carve away from any weak spot. So one common thing is carving away from a previous chip that you did. Anything that's back to back, you want the first cut to be on the other side. So if I removed this chip, my first cut on this one would be right here with that back to back. And the general principle there is carving away from weak spots in the wood. So in this example here, I've carved here and here, and so then my natural thing as I'm carving across the grain here, either direction is fine, I would want to do this, but as I do that I'm going to be carving into this weak spot. I've carved this out already, and then there's just a little bit of wood here and a little bit of wood here separating, so this is going to be a weak spot. So instead of carving into that and pulling this force in and leaving that as the last part of the chip that's being held together, I'm going to flip this around and carve backwards so that I'm moving away from that weak spot. And that's going to preserve that little pointy area by removing the pressure from that first. The rest of the chip that's uncarved is going to support that. And that becomes a little bit more interesting, as you see on this chip. As I do these first two cuts, and now by the same principle I would want to carve in this direction away from the weak spot, but in this case the grain direction is moving this way, and so as I carve here I'm going to be with the grain, which is fine, but then as I move I'm going to be going against the grain at this subtle direction, which makes it more challenging and risky. So rather than that, I actually am going to carve in the normal direction, and the reason that's not going to be a problem in this case is because the chip is ending up pretty much right along the grain, which is a strong situation for the wood, a strong condition for the grain. So even though this area is weak, by finishing on this along the grain direction, it actually provides enough support and structure for that I don't need to worry about it. So just some more stuff to be aware of in your carving, and thinking about your order of cuts, direction of cuts, grain direction, all that stuff, recognizing that you want to be in tune with the wood and what's going to be happening in that. And if you cut one of these and something happens, you get a problem that it rips out, then take that information to your next set and do something different, figure out why that happened, and try to correct for it. So in this case, there's a couple of examples of how to think about a situation like this.